Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fear the Final Girl, a Van Ryder Games podcast. I'm your host, Jamie, and joining me again this month, of course, is Evan. How's it going, Evan?
It's going wonderful, Jamie.
That is wonderful.
We are recording this from our brand new studio. Mm-hmm. So now I can, do stuff like this. It'll sound really cool.
You could do that any day. And you know what? It sounded awesome. It was awesome. Great. And you may notice, of course, we have a new face on the podcast today. We have a special guest, Ryan Jajorian. Welcome, Ryan. He is our in-house Poison Master and, of course, Final Girl feature film designer. So, Ryan, maybe introduce yourself to the people and just tell them, what do we mean when we call you a Poison Master? Because some people might not understand.
Yeah. Well, it's just corporate warfare. That's it. They use me in the background for all of our competitors. It's that simple.
Right.
Yeah.
We're like, you know what? That company over there needs to have their stock prices tanked. Come on, Ryan.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they use me. No.
Do some corporate espionage.
Right.
Poison the well, as it were.
I came into the company doing our in-house miniatures production. And the reason that they call me Poison Master is mostly because of this guy. But when I would be doing 3D prints for our molds and whatnot, 90% of the time Evan, but other people as well, would come in and immediately start touching everything, be it chemical laced or whatever. And Evan just took to calling me the Poison Master. So yeah, careful.
Am I
with
the
your
one
drink.
that came up with that name?
Yeah, you came up with it.
Oh, okay.
And then
Good job,
it just
Evan.
stuck. Yeah.
I know. I'm good with names.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I feel like Poison Master would be a great name for a Final Girl killer. Not saying that you're a killer, although Evan did just accuse you of poisoning the competition. So moving on from that, though.
Yeah.
But that would be
like
a cool name.
Like a toxic swamp creature that exudes
or like an alchemist
fumes.
or something that's like you're mixing potions and
I like
stuff
to
like
think
that.
of myself as toxic swamp creature. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So today's episode is all about Ryan. We will be chatting about his feature films, game design, miniatures, and more. So we're really excited. I want to get more of the team on the podcast so everybody can learn a little bit more about kind of the people behind the scenes. Yeah, that's what we're doing today, my friends.
Well, let's talk about what we've been watching, reading, playing, whatever. So, Ryan, what offerings have been on your plate that you have been enjoying as of late?
Well, me and my wife realized the other night that we had never seen Fast and Furious.
And any of them? You've never seen not even
Any
the
of
first?
them.
Wow.
So
What an
we
adventure.
have started watching those. Yeah.
Which one did you start with?
We watched the first one last night. Yeah.
All right. I love the Fast and the Furious franchise. I'm going to go ahead and say you can watch number 2.
Okay.
You should, you could also watch number 3, but you should really, don't judge the franchise. Number 4 is good. Number 5 is when what the franchise is now really became what it is.
Okay.
So, because 2 and 3 was, I know way too much about this.
Yeah,
3
you do.
was direct to video almost.
Okay.
And it doesn't have any of the main people in it, and they kind of retrograde worked it into the mythology after the fact.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't really matter. But number 4 is when the guy who's basically, been the brainchild of the whole rebirth of the franchise. Number 4 is when he came back, and then number 5 is my favorite.
Okay.
And that's when The Rock shows up, and that's when it starts to get and be what it is.
Okay. Awesome.
You have to wait 5 movies
was
till
fun.
it gets to be what it is.
I would say you can just skip to number 5. You can skip to number 5, but if you want to skip, you can do number 4.
Yeah, I think we're doing one a week just for fun,
Okay, you if you do number 2 and number 3, you have to make it to number 4. I'm just telling you right now. Don't be like, oh my gosh, that was terrible.
Yeah, we're pretty consistent. We'll do it. Yeah,
all right.
I'll let you know. Me personally, I've started reading the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Guin. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an older series, but I don't think it's young adult. It's like between adult and young adult.
Yeah.
But it's about a wizard doing wizard stuff. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I love when wizards do wizard stuff. It's the best kind.
Yeah. It's hard to beat.
I hate reading about wizards who don't do wizard stuff. It's like, why are you even a wizard?
Yeah. Like Gandalf does like 3 things.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Gandalf does very few wizard things.
Like very low magic. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jamie?
Well, after Gamma, I came home with the worst flu of my entire life. I thought I was dying. I was as sick as I've ever been. But what that allowed me to do was watch nothing but horror movies and TV shows. So I watched all of Midnight Mass. I watched all of The Fall of the House of Usher. I watched Heretic. I watched Blink Twice. I watched Companion. So
Wow.
I've been on a horror kick, and all of it, everything I watched was amazing. But Evan, you talked about Companion, I think, in our last podcast. So I would say the one that I'll kind of chat about is Blink Twice, because I didn't know anything about it before seeing it.
That's
have
with
either
Channing
of you
Tatum, right?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, it's really good. I would say like it's bordering on like thriller versus horror, but essentially the premise is this girl and her friend meet Channing Tatum, and he's this rich billionaire who's like doing retreats on his own private island, as billionaires do. And everybody's having a great time, but then eventually some of the girls start being like, I feel like I keep saying I'm having a great time, but like I don't know that I'm having a good time. And then the whole story is them kind of figuring out what's going on this island, and it's messed up, but it is so entertaining. This movie is so good, and I hadn't heard anything about it, so don't like that is all you're allowed to know about it. Don't look anything else up, but there's trigger warnings as there are in all of horror movie genre, but it's very very good. And I was very happy with Heretic. I thought that was great. Hugh Grant was amazing, and I also didn't know anything about it before I watched it, but yeah, everything that I watched was amazing. All of those movies. I really liked Companion. I know that you were kind of like a little bit iffy on it, but I thought I didn't know anything about it, like nothing besides you said there was somebody killed somebody, and I was like, ooh, a scandal. I was shocked at the twist that came very early.
Were
in the
you?
Movie.
Okay.
Shocked. I knew nothing about it.
So you didn't anticipate that was what was happening, because I feel like they like hid it a little bit, but they didn't hide it that much. Like you could figure it out.
Yeah, well, I watched it again with Jeff after, and I was like watching his reactions, and he was also shocked. So neither of us are very intuitive, and I don't want to say too much because it's like the big twist of the movie.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, I've been on a real horror kick lately. So
have I told you my Channing Tatum story?
No, but I'm dying to hear it now.
So in a former life, I was a film critic, and I did press journalism, like for entertainment press journalism, and flew to movie junkets and met and interviewed like Anthony Hopkins, Ewan McGregor, Emily Blunt, lots of famous people. But normally they were just sit down interviews, and then I would transcribe it and then write something up afterwards. But for one movie called The Vow, which Channing Tatum and Rachel McAdams are in, I actually did a video, like on screen interview with them. It was the first time I'd ever done it. It was the only time I ever did it. And so I was sitting outside. It was in a hotel. It was like in a hotel room, hotel suite. They had it all set up, and I was sitting outside, and there's like a whole line of like totally middling press critic, like journal, like all from publications that no one's heard of. It's just they were like, you will have 5 minutes tops.
Oh my God.
And so I'm sitting outside and people are going in one at a time and I'm getting more and more nervous. And then they're like, okay, you're up. And you just walk in and sit down and there's Channing Tatum and Rachel McAdams right in front of you. And you have 5 minutes and you're supposed to like immediately build some kind of rapport with them or feel like you're old friends or something.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. But Rachel McAdams clearly was exhausted and worn out and could have given a crap about who, which is understandable. She could have given a crap about who I was, and she was done.
Right.
But Channing Tatum still had energy, and so I sat down, and he gets up, and he shakes my hand, and he goes, "Hey, man, I'm Chan." And I remember going like, "Oh, hey, Chan, you want to get a beer afterwards?" I didn't actually say that, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, "Yeah, me and Chan are gonna hang out later." So yeah. So I'm on a first name basis with Chan.
You're on a nickname basis with Chan. Like that's
Wow.
Most people call him Channing. It's funny. He's like, I'm Chan. You're like, cool. I'm Evan.
That would have been very clever or dumb. Either way.
Either way, it would have worked.
Anyway.
What about
that's
you, Evan?
my Channing Tatum story.
What have you been up
Oh, what
to?
have I been watching?
Yeah.
So I have been, let's see, I have been watching Reacher, which is on Amazon Prime, which is just such a meathead guy, big dude beats the crap out of bad guys show, and the new Daredevil. So I've been watching those as they come in.
Is that good?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So given the run of fairly paltry Marvel shows that we've had of late, like they're just not great. This one's very, very good.
Sweet.
I feel like the original Daredevil was also very good. Like
Yes.
leaps and bounds above what most of the Marvel shows are. Not all of them, of course, like WandaVision, and that's great, but like some of them
That was when they were on Netflix. So they had Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jennifer Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist, which Daredevil was clearly the winner there, which is why Daredevil is like Charlie Cox, and his Daredevil is the only one that has been brought back into Marvel, the MCU proper, and like Jessica Jones and like they've all been forgotten, like especially Iron Fist. No one wants to even remember Iron Fist. No. It was so bad.
They put them in the closet under the stairs, and they're like, "You stay in here and learn how to do wizard stuff."
Right.
Yes.
Kevin Feige, I think, who is like the mastermind behind all the Marvel stuff, like he's been on record as like almost being like, yeah, those shows are dead to me. Because I don't think he had a lot of, they made some kind of deal with Netflix, and I don't think he had a lot of control. Right. They didn't have a lot of control over how they got made or the quality or whatever, and they just,
Yeah. Cool.
So fun trivia about the MCU.
That is fun
and
trivia.
Channing Tatum. That's really what this podcast is going to be now. Chan, right?
Yeah.
This is a Channing Tatum podcast.
What a twist that would be! It's like, guys, we've switched from Van Ryder Games, Final Girl, none of that. Now we're only talking about Channing Tatum, aka Chan.
Talking about Chan with Ev.
Yeah. Chan with Ev.
Chan and Ev.
The Chan and Ev and Jay. Chan, Ev, and Jay.
Chan, Ev, and Jay. Yeah, it's got a nice ring to it. Let's call him up.
If you one day are like, I have a surprise guest, and Channing Tatum actually shows up, I will just lose my mind.
That would be hilarious. I'll get to work on that tomorrow.
You get to work on that, Jay.
We'll see how long that takes. Might be a couple years, but it's fine. So every podcast we have a word or a phrase of the month for anybody that's kind of new to gaming. Teach you a little bit about kind of some of the words that we use. And today's word or phrase is modular board. And a modular board is a game board made up of separate pieces that can be arranged in different ways, creating a unique layout each time you play. It keeps the game fresh by offering new challenges and strategies based on how the game is set up or how the board moves. It can be made of tiles or hexes, sliding pieces, allowing a ton of replayability. And I specifically chose this because Hell to Pay, so far anyway, is the only feature film that has a bit of a modular board. And I thought, hey, that's a good fit because it's moving. Things are moving around constantly. So I'm curious for Ryan and Evan, are there any games that you can think of with modular boards that you enjoy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan. You first.
Well, I guess mine's kind of mainstream, sort of. But I play a lot of Twilight Imperium 4th edition. And the tile drafting mechanic at the beginning. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think last time I played it, we didn't draft tiles. Like board setup, the way the board is set up.
Yeah, there's like a basic setup you can play with that's like already set up, but if you play kind of the advanced.
Yeah, I played the basic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you get like a stack of tiles and they get passed around and you like draft the map as it's put out. It's a lot of fun because you get like really strategic with, okay, who can I put, the supernova next to like lock them out of resources and stuff like that. So it's really fun.
I have yet to play Twilight Imperium.
Ooh.
I'm afraid to play it. I will probably like it, but I do not want to learn it myself. I want to go somewhere and somebody teach it to me, and then I can play one time.
Don't we all want that, Jamie?
We do. We do want that.
My favular.
So
My
that chan on the brain.
My favorite modular. See that it's just like my favular game.
Yeah.
Now it's like favular just means your favorite modular board game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my favular game is a game called Earth Reborn. Which it's an older game from Z-Man, and it is absolutely one of my top favorite games of all time. And it has a incredibly modular board. It's like all the pieces are like Tetris pieces, and you build like it's like a skirmish. It's like a mini skirmish game, but not like. You measure distance and stuff, but it's got more concrete rules, so it's you're not getting a tape measure out or anything like that.
Right.
And it's set in this kind of bizarre, almost circus-level post-apocalyptic universe where there's like zombies and reanimated zombies, and then there's the good guys, which I think they're called NORAD. Which are basically like Team America. That's kind of what they feel like these gung-ho nationalistic guys. And it's just a skirmish game, but all the pieces, like there's an entire box of pieces, and they're all Tetris polyomino style pieces. And when you there's preset levels you can play, but then there's what's called SARS, which is like how the game is supposed to be played, and you basically build the board yourself, but it's like you're putting like little rooms down and building buildings and all kinds of stuff. It's super cool.
That's cool.
I've never actually heard of that game. You said it's an older game?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds
I think
like
it was
something
published in
I would love.
2010, so it's about 15 years old.
I've heard you mention it before, but I didn't really know much about it.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites. It's very much out of print, though.
Oh.
You can probably find a copy, though. I think that
I'm
they overprinted.
Sure. We have in our Discord, we have a Grail Games channel, and anytime we put anything in there, it's like instant. Someone's like, "Yep, I got it. I'll send it to you," and it's like, I love it.
And this is why you really started Foster the Meeple, so you could have like
Find
a
all the
whole
Grail
bunch
games.
of like minions who are just like,
Minions,
yes, we'll send you your
assemble!
Grail game. I think one of the reasons why Earth Reborn wasn't more successful is that the way the game teaches you feels Like, it almost presents it like you have to play 9 scenarios in a row and learn the rules one at a time before you can play what really is the fun of the game, and that's not required.
Right.
So I actually have revamped how I teach the game. So because I think it just overwhelms people having to do this like tutorial style thing, and the game presents itself as this is what you should do, and so gamers just follow the rules, but then they're stuck playing like 9 games in a row before they get to the actual fun.
Right.
So
yeah.
Okay, so this is a Van Ryder Games podcast, and so we always like to feature a product of the month because, pat ourselves on the back. We make games, and you should buy them. And so this episode, we will be featuring the final girl feature film that Ryan designed called Hell to Pay, featuring Razorface and the Hellscape. Now, this would be the part where I would normally just explain like what that is, because, but now that we have you here, you should do that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Hell to Pay, Ryan.
Okay. Hell to Pay is kind of my favorite feature film.
Is it?
But you have Razorface, who is kind of special in that he cannot be defeated until you have purged these afflictions that he has put on you for entering his domain. So you have to complete special objectives and potentially suffer some extra consequences for completing them.
They're generally fairly painful.
Yeah, intentionally so, yeah. We were going for, like, the theme of torture here, so as much of that as I could put in it possible, I did. So, yeah, that's his little special thing, and then the Hellscape, as you said before, has a modular board that changes each round. You also have the Hell Shift special action, which you can take to try to mitigate some of that puzzliness. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the special stuff that's in it. I know when I first brought it to you, Evan, you played it and you were like, this is brutal. That was the one word you used. So I think you helped me kind of turn the dial down slightly on it, but
I mean, as someone who is routinely accused of designing the most brutal feature films, I do know something about making them a little too hard.
Yeah, I was like, Evan, why didn't you have that conversation with yourself ever? You're like, this is brutal.
Well, listen, we've learned along the way. Inkinyamba, we had to create Inkinyamba before we didn't make Inkinyamba 2.
Inkinyamba needed to walk so that the hunter could run.
That's right. I have seen people complaining about the hunter difficulty. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like Inkinyamba difficulty.
No, it's possible.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard.
Is it? Is it pretty hard?
It's so difficult, yes. But
okay.
He's my new nemesis. I've defeated Inkinyamba. We're on good terms, me and him. He's fine now. The hunter, on the other hand.
Have you not defeated the hunter yet?
No, of course not.
Does he keep killing the savior?
Yeah, well, or the savior kills himself. I think the problem is actually not the hunter. It is the savior. It's not the hunter. It's that brat.
He's such a little brat. When I was designing him, I was just like, oh, this guy, this kid is going to annoy the hell out of people.
Yeah. Mission accomplished. Sure
For
did.
the record, I've never lost to Inkinyamba.
What?
How many times have you played him?
I think like 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That seems like you were doing something
I think
wrong.
Probably.
You're probably playing wrong.
I don't think you're... Wait. Now, where have you played in Kinyamba?
Only Sacred Groves.
Okay, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
you were definitely doing something wrong.
Or I'm just that good.
Maybe. All right,
He's
I
a
have to watch
wizard
you
doing
play
wizard stuff.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, it is a solo game, so like I can kind of like...
He's like, I cheated
Yeah.
every time, but I still won.
I rolled a 1. Maybe that's actually a 6. They kind of look similar if I squint my eyes really tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Are you having fun? That's the question.
Yeah.
That is the question.
This is just a side note. Evan, I played Terror from Destiny on stream last week. I freaking loved it. And I
Awesome.
won, and I had so much fun that I was guessing everybody right, and everybody in chat was like, "Ooh," and I'm like, I'm getting through this. I'm like, I'm actually going to win this, because I was so scared before I started it. I'm like, this is going to be a really quick stream. I think I'm going to die very quickly. But it was really good. I really, really liked it. So
That's awesome. I'll have to go back and watch that stream.
yeah, we had a good time.
That one I was always concerned with, because it was going to be so different from how Final Girl normally works. And
Yeah.
I was very concerned that it would be too weird or too different or too much.
Right.
But generally, people really seem to enjoy the different quirks and twists that it introduces.
Yeah, I matched it up with at Falconwood. So I also had to do a mission, which I wasn't thinking of like time. And I was like running out of time to get everything done, but I ended up winning, and it was great. So
That's awesome.
yeah, cool. Let's dive into our feature topic for this month. And like I mentioned before, it's all about Ryan, and I have a list of questions here about kind of your journey in designing a Final Girl feature film, being a Poison Master, and more. Ryan is a bit more behind the scenes on the team, and I wanted to shine a little spotlight on his awesomeness today, so that's what we're here to do. So, to start, before we dive into Final Girl, I'm just curious, like, what was your introduction into board gaming? Like, how did you get into the hobby? Was it board games? Was it miniatures? Was it RPGs? Because everybody kind of enters in a different way.
Yeah, mine is kind of interesting because it's sort of been around my entire life. I was probably 8 or 9 when my dad bought Memoir 44.
Of course, your dad was like,
Yeah.
sweet, he's 8 or 9. Finally, I have a gaming buddy.
Yep. Yeah. So he got Memoir 44, and that was my first time like really playing a designer board game. But before that, I had personally saved up money and bought HeroScape, the original HeroScape. And never have I ever played it, but I would set it up in my room and like come up with rules and make cards for them and stuff. And I basically turned it into my own game. But
Right.
yeah, HeroScape was the original entry, I guess. And then, yeah, from there, my dad and I played all kinds of games. And I think kind of we sort of were like following the hobby along together after a while. So it's kind of just always been around. Yeah.
I would do that too when I was a kid. I would set up, I think I had Axis and Allies, and then I had a game called Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, which, if anybody's listening, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century is my Grail game.
Oh, I'll put it in the Grail chat, Evan. Who knows
Yeah,
what
you
could
put
happen?
put it in the Grail chat. So I would set this game up and then just stare at it and wish that I had people to play with. And every once in a while I would convince my brother to play. But then I didn't understand that in order to get him to continue to play with me, I needed to not curb stomp him every time.
Yeah.
Which I would, because I was very competitive, I would then proceed to do, and he would be like, I'm done. I'm never playing again. I'd be like, why? We're just having fun while I annihilate all your people. So I also have experience setting games up in my room and staring at them.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a very like I remember I had the Game of Life, and it's the same like all of those board games, and nobody in the house wants to play, and you just set it up, and you know how the Game of Life has that little like spinny wheel thing. I would just be like, brrr, brrr, like, well, I'm playing the game. I got my little family in a car, and I'm going around. This is my life. It sucks. Nobody will play with me. Okay, so I'm now curious, after your journey through board gaming, like HeroScape, Memoir 44, you mentioned Twilight Imperium. What is your favorite board game of all time, if you had to pick one?
That's really hard.
Yeah.
It changes. Right now, it's probably Arcs.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
I love Arcs.
I haven't played Arcs yet.
I've been playing it a lot, and
Yeah.
I know, like in my friend group and my gaming group and stuff, like it's kind of hit or miss, but it hit it for me. I absolutely love that game.
It's very polarizing for some. I also love it. Jeff loves it, but our friends Nick and Mike from the Brothers Murph, they don't like it because they don't like that. There's a lot of table talk, a lot of heavy interaction, a lot of like messing with what people have been building, and I think that might be what triggers people. But it's so good. Have you played it solo?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I've played. Well, I mean, I guess when I play it solo, I play like 4 players.
Yeah.
Playing against each other. So if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have. Even that is fun because I do that with the leaders in lore, and it feels like it offers enough asymmetry, but not too much to be able to like kind of interact with it solo. But yeah, my brother-in-law John, podcast plugged the discussion phase. He and his group, they did not like it.
Yeah.
And they played like through a full campaign of it and sold it and never looked back.
So did you, I think I've asked you this before, but I don't remember. Did you all like Oath?
I've not played Oath.
Okay.
No, I really want to though.
I don't understand Oath at all. We played it. Everybody, I played it with this just look of bewilderment on my face because I was like, "What is this?" And then we got to the end, and I was like, "Did we play something wrong?" Like no one enjoyed it. And then the like legacy aspects of it where like you influence your kingdom or whatever, and then the next time you play it's kind of influenced, didn't make sense to me. So I sold it immediately, but felt like I had missed something. I felt like it felt like a brilliant game that I somehow missed why it was brilliant, but I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna roll this out ever again.
Well, maybe I'll snag it and we can try playing it again because I love all their games, but.
I think I need some. Have you played Oath?
No, Jeff played half a game of it, and it was kind of a similar feeling to what you're describing. And I think that was like a pretty general consensus of people are like, what? Like, they just didn't know, like, what is this game? Like,
right.
It's hard to kind of put your finger on it, but I haven't played. I'd like to play it. We do own it. I haven't.
It's like the board game version of The Princess Bride. When that came out, it was an absolute failure.
Yeah.
Because no one, they didn't know how to market it. They didn't know what it was. And everybody who went to saw it was just like, what the hell is this movie? And then, of course, it, played on syndication, and over time it's become this thing. But so maybe Oath is the Princess Bride of board games.
Could be.
Well, usually the more people dislike it or have hard feelings about it, the more I like it. So I'll probably love Oath.
Well, I think a lot of people really, really, really like it and speak very, very highly of it. So I feel like I need someone to teach and play the game with me who has played like a number of times and can kind of point out why the game is special or say things like, hey, you're not going to realize it this game, but if you play a second game, you're really going to pick up. Like, I feel like I needed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we love leader games. I just think they make such like interesting, highly interactive designs. So I assume, Ryan, you like Twilight Imperium. You like interaction in board games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love negotiating with people and trying to like do things that keep them from doing other things while thinking that you're trying to get them to do something else. I love that. Yeah.
Are you a Root fan?
I love Root. That was my favorite game of all time, like
up
way
until
before
Arcs.
like the day that came out, that was my favorite game. And then Arcs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like this,
Yeah.
and Arcs has come out slightly on top, mostly for the speed. At least my group, we play it pretty quickly. So,
You ever played Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
I love that board game. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great game.
Also love the game and I've played it probably 4 times and hated every session of it because the people I knew the people I was playing with weren't playing it the right way. Like, it's a negotiation game. You need to be making deals and cutting deals and like wandering off with like one player and being like, and the people I played it with wouldn't do that. They played it like, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm like, no, we're not playing it right. So I want to play Game of Thrones with people. Your dad has it, right?
Yeah, he has it.
Yeah, we should do. Yeah,
we should
totally do that.
Yeah,
it's epic.
I'm lucky. I've got a really good group that loves to negotiate and stuff. So, you definitely have to find people who are like, they're in it for the experience as well as winning. You know, because otherwise they're just going to kind of sidestep negotiation to try to make moves that they think will win, rather
right?
than
Which is
experience
then it's
again.
just boring.
Yeah,
It's so boring.
Oh man,
yeah, we
Game
should
of
do that. That'd
Thrones.
be fun.
You should. When we used to play it, like that used to be the only game that we played. It was my intro into board gaming, and we would put on the Game of Thrones theme song on repeat for like 5 hours straight, and it was amazing. Highly recommend doing that. So, Ryan, at what point did you start to think about designing your own feature film? I feel like anybody that joins the Van Ryder Games team, it immediately, like, you start thinking, like, this would be a good feature film. This would be a good one. But, like, at what point were you like, no, I'm going to actually, like, take a swing at this?
Yeah. Well, I know that there was, like, some talk probably about a year-ish after I started here, kind of about like looking internally for some other ideas. And then I think I just either Evan and AJ talked to me about it or the other way around or something like that. And then I presented my idea to them, which was like really basic, but I had made a small prototype and walked through the special rules and all of that for the feature film. And they were like, I remember they called me when I was at the grocery store and they were like, hey, we want to do your game. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, awesome. So, I think it was a little organic, but I know that they kind of were looking internally for some designs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really, we've seen a number of Final Girl prototypes, and some of them have come in, and we can tell, like, okay, the bones of this are pretty good, but it's going to need a lot of development work from us. And yours was one of the rare exceptions that it came in and it was just like, oh, okay, this is already pretty strong. So
Thank you.
Was that the first game that you had kind of worked on? Because I know you kind of like dabble in design and stuff like that. Was that the first design that you ever worked on?
It's probably the first design I ever finished. I off and on through my life have made games or changed the rules of games to make them fit friend groups better or whatever.
Right.
I remember one time when I was younger. Have you ever heard of the game Dust Tactics? The big miniatures game. So it's like an alternate World War II like mech fighting type game. And so played that game all the time when I was younger, and then I wanted to like make my own units for it, and it started out with like making little paper almost origami like mechs, and then that transitioned into creating a full-on mech game of my own. So that was probably the first one, and I had to have been like maybe 14 at the time. So off and on, I've been making games, but rarely ever finishing them until that one.
Yeah, I feel like you're probably not alone in that. There's probably a lot of people that like, this is going to be great. And they get like 50% of the way through. They're like, what's next? Let's think of something new.
It's when you like the idea in the initial part is often the fun bit, and then once you realize, oh, this doesn't work nearly as well as I thought it would. It's gonna require a lot of work and 50, 60, 70 play tests as I iterate. That's the part where you go, I think I'm done.
Yeah,
100%.
And I think probably with mine, like what happens technically, probably the worst thing that can happen to you is that the first one that I fully finished and presented got approved, because then I went and fully finished 2 more, and nobody liked them. So
that happened to me too.
Yeah, it's like, that sounds familiar. Evan said something like that before.
Yeah. My first game I designed worked out of the gate really pretty well. And then I was just like, oh, I got this game design thing done. This isn't hard. And then the next 4 or 5 things I designed were absolute crap. And I was just like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was.
Yeah.
So definitely learning that, yeah.
Yeah. Can you walk us through kind of your process for designing Hell to Pay? Like, what kind of, like, how did you do your research? Like, how did you approach the design? All of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, from designing it, I work kind of in pictures in my mind. So I start with like a few components, or in that case, I started with the location board, because in my mind, I could see this like maze that was turning around and flipping all over the place, and people running through it trying to like make their way while not getting lost. And so I saw that in my mind, and then spent some time trying to like translate that to the location board. So I think the location was what I made first, and then from there it sort of expanded outward. So I always start with, I always hear it either way. Some people start with rules and some people start with components, and mine's kind of a weird mixture where I kind of have to start with like the theme and a little bit of rules and mush that together and then see what comes out of that. And then eventually I start to get more organized and develop it into something playable. And then for research on that one, I probably read and consumed more horror media than I've ever consumed.
Yeah, you told me what you were watching, and I was like, you know, you don't have to watch all of them, right?
So, yeah, yeah, that probably did a little bit of trauma to my psyche with how much I consumed at the time. But I wanted it to be as thematic as possible. So,
yeah. I was going to say, it comes across as like that the theme was very important and integral to like the design that you made. So it's like, oh, you've done some research here.
Thank you.
Exhaustive research.
Yeah. Well, your feature film is the only one that has all unique items. Like, you don't use any from any of the other sets, like no first aid kit, no energy drink, nothing like that. What made you kind of decide that that's the approach that you wanted to do?
I didn't really decide that.
Yeah.
That just kind of happened.
Right.
Yep. I remember looking at it as the art director and being like, do I have to get 18 individual pieces of art for these items? Because usually we'll do 8 to 9 new ones and not like a whole slate of new ones. So.
Yeah. And I think I had, to be honest, I think at that time I had played a limited number of feature films. And then I presented that to them and they liked it. And then I think AJ was like, you need to go and play all the others.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I did that, and then I realized, oh, I've got all these unique items, and there's not any that repeat. And I don't think I've done that either for the one that's coming up. I don't think I have any that are repeats.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Evan's like,
Great.
cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
You're welcome.
My favorite.
What would you say was the most challenging part working on a Final Girl feature film? Because you're kind of working within an already like constructed system. So you have to follow that kind of path while making it unique and creative enough that people are like, oh, this is different and exciting.
Yeah. Probably the most challenging thing is dialing into the same intuition about the system that Evan and AJ have. So like if you present them with some mechanics or something for one of these, they can kind of look at it really quick and go, that needs to change, that won't work, let's change this, and so on. So trying to kind of like step into the shoes of someone who's gone from the ground up and trying to make that plug in well is probably the hardest thing. Because I think on the first presentation to them, that was like immediate. It was like, we really like this, but here are all of the things you have to change because this won't work. And it would be small stuff like that 3 needs to be a 2, you know, little tiny things that they just already had a feel for, which I think on the second time I got a better hang on that. So that's probably the most challenging thing, is figuring out how to plug all those individual pieces into the whole system. Yeah.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. And you kind of mentioned it a couple times, but you do have you have another feature film that is going to be coming out. Can you share? People are obviously always chomping at the bit to learn more and more about new feature films. So can you share anything about it? Some details, like what's the name, even the theme, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's called A Rotten Harvest. The killer is Grimlash, the Harvest Lord, and the location is Shady Acres. So I think I can kind of just go on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Shady Acres, and I kind of start with the location when I talk about it because I feel like, and I guess now that we've talked about it, I did that with Hell to Pay too. I started with the location.
Yeah.
So it's a little farming town, and just for a little backstory, when I was growing up, not only was I playing games with my dad, but my best friend growing up lived on a farm, and I spent countless hours out there with him on the farm, playing in creeks and fields and all kinds of stuff. And nighttime on the farm was honestly really spooky. So a farming town that's really spooky and eerie came kind of naturally, I feel like. So yeah, Shady Acres, little farming town. There are very few people who live here, tiny population. It's mostly just fields and fields, acres and acres of corn, a couple cow pastures here and there. But pretty much it is a desolate, empty place where really nature reigns supreme. And I think so for the kind of special stuff that the location adds in, rather than with like Hell to Pay, where sometimes you can get blocked off from different areas, this one's kind of different than that in that most spaces are pretty well connected. But the killer, whatever killer you play at the location, has a special connection to the land of this area, because there's something kind of going on with the land here. And so your killer can move through cornfields at will. So if you step into a cornfield on one side of the board and the killer's on the other side of the board, but in a cornfield, the killer's not really on the other side of the board. The killer is right next to you.
Yikes.
So there's that. And then there are these little possessed children that the land has cursed.
What?
And they are kind of walking through the cornfields, picking victims out here and there.
Cornfield children?
Yeah, something like that.
What a concept.
Yeah, never would have thought. But they are picking out the victims to be sacrifices. And the more sacrifices that they get of these victims, they start cursing the land, and you have to deal with newer and more terrible effects as the game goes on, as they take people. So sort of a double thing going on there, where you have to worry about the speed of the killer as well as these little location-based minions that are going around doing all kinds of sneaky stuff. For the killer, Grimlash, he's kind of like a scarecrow type killer, and he has this effect on you and everyone else in the town of Shady Acres, or wherever else you would play him, where he gives you this track called the Harvest Madness track. So you're slowly becoming corrupted by the madness of this ancient, terrible god, Grimlash.
Feels very Cthulhu-esque.
Yeah, it's a little Lovecraftian. So it's sort of push your luck. You're trying to, you're going to be getting Harvest Madness no matter what you do. you can mitigate it slightly by different mechanics. But the higher you get on this Harvest Madness track, you'll start getting special Harvest Madness powers that do like really incredible things for you in the game. But if you go beyond the track, whether it be by accident, hopefully not on purpose, but I could see that happening, you lose. So you're not trying to just stay at 0 on Harvest Madness the whole time, or you wouldn't have time to do anything else. But you're trying to push your luck with that, get some powers that could be helpful, while also not losing the game and going crazy, because Grimlash can win that way. So
Interesting. I got to play your prototype version of it, and it was super fun.
Oh, yeah.
And if I remember, very punishing. I remember being like, ooh, this is hard, but like fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did quite a bit more development after you played it. So
right. Yeah, that would have
maybe it's
been
not quite as punishing.
last summer. That's crazy. That was July, August. Crazy. Time flies.
Oh, yeah.
So how important would you say is putting like little Easter eggs in your designs? Because obviously like we never like fully say, hey, this game is kind of like inspired by this particular movie or franchise, but we like to put in some little fun Easter eggs. Is that something that you find important in your designs?
Yeah, I think they're subconsciously important. For whatever reason, you'll probably find a lot of Lord of the Rings Easter eggs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so go read the flavor text, and there are a handful of Lord of the Rings references. Yeah.
I love that.
In
That's
Hell to
amazing.
Pay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to go
I think
through.
the rusty flesh hook meat's back on the menu.
Oh, I do remember that one.
Yeah. That one's a little more brazen, but there are
Yeah.
others. Yeah.
That's
It's
really
back on the menu,
interesting.
boys.
But yeah, I mean, obviously the stuff that it's inspired by.
Yeah.
You can't not put that stuff in there. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard not to. But yeah, it's super important. I think it adds to the experience for sure.
Yeah, and I think the fans of Final Girl like specifically like look for that stuff. Like they'll scour through everything and be like, "Oh, well this is in reference to this." Even if it's not, they'll find some reference. Yeah, so I'm also curious because like you mentioned, you're always kind of dabbling in different designs. Are you working on anything beyond Final Girl right now, or are you just kind of doing some designs for fun?
Yeah, well, so I have transitioned into a new role here anyways. So I'm going from the miniatures production manager to just a project manager. So I'll be working on things whether they're mine or someone else's anyways. But in terms of my stuff, I guess I already told you that 2 of my other games that were not Final Girl related did not land well. But I do have some others that I'm working on, but I don't think I can talk too much about them.
Okay, just it's good to know you're dabbling in some other stuff. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a couple more questions that are not necessarily design related, but these are almost like just quick fun questions. I would love to know, because you're a horror movie fan, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What are your top 5 horror movies?
Number 1 is Hereditary.
Okay. Great movie.
Yeah. I love Hereditary.
Everyone's favorite feel-good film.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a comfort movie. Yeah, I watch Hereditary every Halloween, so that's like my favorite horror movie. I love really anything that's Robert Eggers. So like all of his stuff, I pretty much like. So maybe that's 2, 3, 4, and 5.
The Lighthouse?
I liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't my favorite,
Right.
but I liked it enough. Yeah, I like the weirder stuff for sure.
And you like The Northman?
I like The Northman, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess it's like medieval horror, technically, kind of ish. But The Green Knight is my favorite movie of all time. And I know it's like a darker medieval movie.
I haven't actually seen it.
Yeah. I love that movie. I love it so much. But I don't know. I thought it was more horror-esque going in, and then afterward it wasn't quite as much. So I don't know if it counts.
Yeah.
But that is my favorite movie ever. Favorite horror movie is Hereditary. And I'm sorry, I don't know about 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Well, you gave a director, so you're like, yeah, that works. Because his movies are what? It's The Witch, right? He does The Witch.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse.
The Witch.
Right. Yeah.
Did he
I
do?
really love Nosferatu.
I just watched it.
Nosferatu.
Yeah. I just watched
loved
that.
it. Yeah.
It was great. Yeah. It was different, but in a
Yeah.
fun way. He does that other. Oh, what's that other one that he does where everything happens in the light? With Florence Pugh.
No, that's the Hereditary. That's
Midsummer.
Ari Aster. That's Midsommar. Yeah.
Oh,
That's Ari Aster.
Never mind. I don't know anything about anything.
No, I mean they have. I'd say Ari Aster and like Robert Eggers have very similar sensibilities. So
Yeah.
it would be easy to conflate their films.
Yeah.
And if you were a character in a horror movie, what kind of character would you want to be? Would you want to be the killer? Would you want to be like the hero? Would you survive? Would you not?
Ooh, I would probably want to just go first. Yeah. I wouldn't want to last through any of that. Just take me out first.
You're the person in the
You don't
zombie
wanna
apocalypse who like walks into the road like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm not gonna act like I'm gonna be a hero or something. Just take me out first, and we'll go on our way.
You're the guy in A Quiet Place who's just in the middle of the woods and just starts screaming.
Yeah, that works.
No, realistically, I probably would try to get away at least, but I don't know. That might just be instinct. I'd rather just take me out right away.
Yeah,
I'm good. I don't need to finish the movie.
I've seen this ending before, and I didn't like it.
Let's just fast forward.
If you were trapped in a cabin in the woods with one of the final girl killers, who of the final girl killers do you think you have the best chance of survival?
Probably Poltergeist. Because I think she's probably chatty, and I could probably talk her up and kind of cool things down a little bit.
I mean, really, but it depends where she's hitting Carolyn.
Sure. Yeah.
So I guess if you're just in a cabin, I mean, how many places can Carolyn be hid?
Right. Yeah.
That's a pretty easy
there you
answer.
go.
I could just like picture it. It's like Ryan and Poltergeist, and you're like, where is she? And she's like, I'm not telling you. It's like there's 2 rooms in here, and she's not in this room. So is she in the bathroom? Like, I won't say.
Oh, yep, she's in the bathroom.
Yeah. Easy. It probably comes from all those negotiation games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I would
works.
just turn it into one of those. Yeah.
And last question, besides Hell to Pay, what would you say is your favorite feature film?
Probably The Intruders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
For sure. Yeah, I think Mike did a phenomenal job with that. I think that's like a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah, a lot
for
of people.
Sure.
He's very good at coming up with new stuff that works well within the Final Girl system.
Yeah. And then I also just love Camp Happy Trails. Like that's my comfort film.
Me too.
My wife and I play all the time. And half the time I'm like, you want to just do Camp Happy Trails?
Yeah.
It's just it has that classic feel.
Yeah.
So
It's Cozy Final Girl. I made a ranking video recently of my favorite feature films in order. And I was like, Camp Happy Trails is a cozy game. And people are like, what? Like, Final Girl's not cozy. I'm like, but this one is. You don't get it.
Oh, yeah.
It's very
It's so
cozy.
cozy.
It's very comforting for me.
It is. There is like a level of in part because there's not like a bunch of extra. It's just very simple rule set. There's not a bunch of extra rules. So
Yeah.
you don't have to. It's cozy in the sense that you don't have a lot of stuff to manage.
Mm-hmm. You're just managing Hans.
Right.
Big deal. What's he going to do? Cool. So those are all of my questions. That is everything that we have for today's episode. I want to say a big thank you to Ryan for joining us. And usually this is the time where I say, Ryan, where can the listeners find you? But I don't even know if you have like a social media presence or anything like that, but where can they find you?
It's very minimal.
Yeah.
Like, I think everything is like on private, and I post maybe one thing a year at most.
People can email you.
Yeah, you can email me.
Ryan at
vanridergames.com.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll probably see that more than any Instagram message or anything like that. So,
and you do go to different conventions and stuff. So now if people are watching the podcast, they might recognize the face. So you can always say hi to them at a convention.
Oh, yeah. And in our Discord, I respond
Yeah.
a little bit in there.
A little bit.
That's social media. Yeah.
Sometimes I do look at it.
Yes. Yeah. Too busy making games.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. That is everything that we have for everybody today. Ryan just mentioned the Discord, and as always, I like to suggest if you aren't in the Van Ryder Games Discord, you definitely should be. It's a good time in there. People are talking about games, and we even have a podcast channel where you can watch the episode and then chat about it with each other and have some fun and ask some questions and all of that good stuff. But we will be back again next month, and I believe next month we are going to have special guest David Thompson, designer of games such as Undaunted and many, many more. It would take me forever to list them, but that's what we've got on tap for you next month. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.